It's Katie and Jenna and Katie with Friday Night Cheers.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Friday Night Tears. As always, I'm Katie.
And I'm Jenna. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. I'm so excited for today's episode.
Me too. It's going to be a good one.
So as you obviously could see by the title, and if you were listening on the last episode, we are doing a Blink-182 deep dive today.
Whoop, whoop. So I want to apologize to everyone out there, and by last episode, it's been kind of a minute. We were nowhere to be found last week, and there's really no explanation for it.
There's not, but Jenna made a really good point that we are in charge of this. So
we make the rules.
If we're having a bad week, we can just push it because we are our own bosses, and I think that's pretty cool. I'll never forget, Jenna, when we had our first we called it like our first day on the job when we went to record store day, and we were like, look at us first, like, you know, just doing whatever we want, like we're, you know, no one to really like tell us what to do. And so that was a good reminder, because some things it's okay to not be, you know, as strict with certain things that are supposed to be more creative or, you know, fun.
Well, also remember, Katie, that this is our passion side hobby. This isn't a day where we like have to stress out at like work. Like, we already have a full-time job. You have a billion jobs somehow, and I'm in school, so this is for fun.
Okay, very good point. Very good point. Thank you for that reminder.
All right, so let's talk about what we've been up to since the last time we talked. So you went to a show by yourself, huh?
I did. I went to, we'll talk about the details of it next episode, but I went to a concert by myself. I do enjoy doing things by myself. I go to the movies by myself sometimes, or just like dinner or lunch, but going to a show has always been something that I do like with a group of people or with at least one person. I think this is the first show I've ever been to alone, and it felt really weird at first, but then once the band started, it felt really cool to be alone, because sometimes when you're with other people, like, you want to be a little closer and they might not want to be, or, you know, there's just like, you kind of have to compromise sometimes with like what your situation at the concert is. And it was really nice because I was kind of getting into it like just a little bit closer than I would have maybe if someone else was there. So it ended up being positive, but I was definitely like walking up, I saw like all the people like with groups, and I was like, this is a little weird, but it ended up being really good. I saw Streetlight Manifesto, which for those of you that don't know is a ska band. We're going to talk about that next episode, but it was really cool. A lot of pushing, a lot of drunk people. I ran through the pit one time. Oh. And then regret
it.
It was like the last. I love that you're like, oh, because I've literally never done that. But I was just getting really into it. You know, I had a couple of ciders, and they do like the circle thing, and I kind of like, I got a little close, and I ran up, and I did like one circle, and then I ran out, and I was like sweating, and it was intense.
You're like,
abort mission. It's funny, there was this couple there that I think the girl knew what I was up to, but because I didn't know anyone, like, I tried to kind of like have someone near me that felt good instead of, you know what I mean, instead of like having, like you said, that girl at Anthony Green that was just like, you know. So I found this couple. There was this guy who was like probably like 6'3", really big, looked really cool, and then this girl, and they were just like kind of like me, just like vibing. And I kind of tried to stand next to the guy and kind of use him as like my rock, but I didn't tell them what I was doing. I was just kind of I just kind of like chose them, and I was like, you're mine now. And like, you know, when people were pushing, he would push in his elbows and stuff. So I kind of found like a security guard that I didn't tell them what his job was, but I think she knew that I was using her man, and she was fine with it.
All right. Well, we love a queen who shares.
We do. So yeah,
funny.
that was really fun. What have you been up to?
Oh my God, what haven't I been up to? It's been an insane past couple of weeks for me. I feel like I'm living like in like a weird land. Like every day I wake up and I just, okay, how do I break this down? I wake up, I work, and then I get back on my other computer to go work on my education, and then I'm on the computer till like almost 10 o'clock at night, and then I go to bed, wake up, and do it all over again. So it's like, it's just been rough. I'll tell you that.
Can you tell the story briefly about the thrift stores?
Oh, the thrift stores.
Just briefly.
That day was a nightmare. So last weekend, Michael and I were looking for a dresser for his closet. And he just needs some organization in there, and that's okay. So we were looking. So we got up early, 9 a.m. sharp, ready to be at Salvation Army at 10 a.m. when it opened.
On a Saturday.
On a Saturday.
Yeah.
On a Saturday.
She's had a long week.
A long week already. So we get up early. I don't even get to sleep in. We get there, packed full, parking lot, barely any spots left. Don't know how, 17 minutes in, after it's open, the store's already packed. We get in. Every furniture there is either been already sold because you can rip the tags off, or like it's just not what we're looking for. So we're like, okay, well, this was a waste of time because it's like almost 30 minutes to drive out to this big location. And we're like, we can either stand here and wait for a new batch of furniture to come out, or we just continue on with the day, which is what we did. So we went to the next Salvation Army, nothing there. Then we went to Goodwill, nothing there. Then we're like, okay, well, what do we do now? Resort to Walmart and Target, go to Walmart and Target, nothing there. It was just like, after going to 5 different locations on a Saturday morning, you're just wiped, absolutely wiped.
And I just want to, I know a lot of you don't live near us, but each of these locations is like 20 to 30 minutes away. So like, it's not just like this is exhausting.
Yeah. It was a hot day out. You're like sweating.
Does he have a dresser now? I need to know.
So, well, the story continues. So he has a dresser now. Now, is it the dresser we wanted? No. Is it the dresser we ever dreamed of? Absolutely not. It was.
Do you hate the dresser, or
I don't love, but I do like what it provides, which is drawers and to organize. So he ordered it off Walmart, and the thing is, we thought it was going to be fine, like a standard, just regular dresser. There's no personality to it, so we thought, what could go wrong? Well, turns out whoever delivered it decided to just throw it against the ground, and because it had nicks, it was like kind of like broken a little bit in some areas. Some of the tools had to be pulled out and pushed back in, like the little like knob things. Michael has pictures. We can definitely show you one who's interested. It wasn't in great condition.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he spent like quite a bit of money on this to be shipped out here, and so he sent Walmart a message saying, hey, like, is there any way we can get a refund on this? It was damaged, blah blah blah. And then Walmart's like, either you return it or you keep it. There's no refund for partial. So it is what it is.
Well, at least you have a dresser.
At least we have a dresser in there.
Might not be the one you want, but you know.
It's not the one we want, but beggars can't be choosers. So we got what we wanted, and maybe in the future we'll keep our eye out for a new one.
Sounds like a plan. Love that. All right, so let's just kind of dive in. This is another one of our deep dive episodes. This will be our second one. Initially, we were going to do every 5 episodes as a deep dive, but, you know, we make the rules, and I think we love deep dives. It's just interesting because, like, we're only on the 8th episode, but, like, we're trying new things, and I like the idea of, especially, like, this one and then the My Chem one, like, they're bands that we've known and loved, but maybe, like, haven't really taken the time to, like, deeply get to know. So I think it's really cool that we're, you know, it kind of gives us the opportunity to, like, just, you know, get to know them and fall in love with them even more.
I hope with the fans' permission that we get to explore this more. I would really like to do this.
I know, me too. Well, it's funny when we were thinking about which band to pick. It's like, you know, we're picking these big bands like Blink and My Chem, but, you know, maybe our next one we could pick a band that's a little less known.
I would love that.
To do a deep dive on. Yeah, that might be fun. All right, so just a recap. So we talked about Blink-182 in our 3rd episode, which was pop punk. And we'll just remind everyone of the stats here. So they were a tier 1. Obviously, they're huge. They've had 24 singles, 2 EPs. They've had 8 studio albums. They have 14.2 million monthly listeners on Spotify and about 2.2 million Instagram followers. So very solid stats overall.
Big band.
Big band.
They have been around since 1992. Now, you want to hear a funny story about that fact in particular?
That's when I was born.
Well, I was born a year prior to that, but the company I work for, on the orientation that I do, the company was also founded in 1992, so I always make a joke that I'm older than the company. So I think that's funny. I'm older than the band.
Well, now you should say, like Blink-182, this company has been. You should do that next time.
They'd be like, "How is that relevant?"
Well, hey, you might make a new friend. You might get someone like message you on the side and be like, "Heck yeah,
heck yeah." So the band members originated with Mark Hoppus, Travis Barker, and Matt Skiba. In the past, Scott Raynor, and then for most of you, Blink-182's leading vocalist was Tom DeLonge in the past. And then the band originated in California, and their genres are known as either quote-unquote American rock band, which is very generic, but also known as pop punk, alternative rock, punk rock, and skate punk.
Yes, they've said that they don't like to be limited to a genre, just like every other band that we talk about says. Mm-hmm. But I think all of those kind of fit their vibe at different points of their career.
I agree. Particularly skate punk, I think, fits it, and pop punk.
Yes, for sure. So how this episode's going to go, I know when we did My Chem, we kind of just broke it down by album. Mm-hmm. Blink has a lot of albums, so we're just kind of going to take you on a journey from start to finish of their musical career.
I like that. It's like almost like they're going on an adventure with us.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up, baby.
All right. Well, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Shirt's coming soon.
Michael said he would make us stickers, so I'm looking forward to that.
Love that.
Okay, so I'm going to bring us to the beginning of our journey, where we're going to start at the formation in the initial years of Blink-182, or known as Blink during that time. So fun fact, so from 1992 to 1994, this group emerged from Southern California during the skate punk scene and gained notoriety for high energy live shows and their crude humor, and the lyrics that they had seemed to focus on relationships, adolescent frustration, and maturity, or lack thereof, as Katie would say, the toilet humor of the band.
Wait, why is that what I would say?
You said that in the other episode. If you don't believe me, go listen to it.
You remembered?
I remembered. So basically, all right, let's break it down. So basically, Tom DeLonge was expelled from high school for being a drunk at a basketball game. Seems pretty on par for him, I guess. I don't know. Yep. And was forced to attend another school for a semester. So this is important because if he didn't get drunk at a basketball game and then was forced to go to another school, he wouldn't have been able to perform at a Battle of the Bands competition, where he was introduced to then drummer Scott. He also befriended a guy named Carrie Key, so Kiki, who was interested in, I gave him a nickname already, we're cool.
Kiki.
Kiki. So he was also interested in the punk rock music scene. Then Key was dating a girl named Ann Hoppus, the sister of Mark Hoppus. So things are starting to formulate here. If we're talking about the right place, right time for Tom DeLonge, their band was no different because Southern California was known for their large punk community, which was, of course, aided by the surfing, skateboarding, and snowboarding. The trio began to practice together in Scott's bedroom. So they spent a lot of time writing music, seeing movies together, and going to concerts, playing a lot of practical jokes as kids would. And then they first operated under a variety of band names such as like Duct Tape and Figure Eight, until Tom was like, we're going to name the band Blink. Katie, do you know why they named the band Blink?
I don't. I know why they added the 182, but
Okay.
I don't know about the Blink.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of a mystery still to me. If anyone knows, just let me know. And then, so Mark Hoppus' girlfriend of the time was annoyed by his like constant attention to the band. Wow, sounds like a bummer already. And she demanded that he make a choice between the band and her, which, that never works out. But he did result in leaving the band after its formation. And then, so she won for now. Shortly therefore, after Tom and Scott Boward, I can't say Boward right, Boward, a 4-track recorder from a friend, and they were preparing to record a demo tape. And then, surprise, see that thing? Girlfriend thing didn't work out. He broke up with his girlfriend and returned back to the band.
Yep. You should always be with someone that supports your dreams, because it never works out if you try to change for them.
He probably resented her. Like, what the heck?
Yep.
So they recorded a song and some punk covers back in 1993. So Blink, quote unquote, began booking some shows, and they were on stage like every single weekend. And Tom called clubs constantly in San Diego asking for a spot to play, as well as all the local high schools. And he convinced them that Blink was a motivational band with a strong anti-drug message, which I'm sure technically was. And then in hopes to play at the assembly or school lunches. And then the band popularities grew as the punk rock continued to increase in popularity throughout mainstream. So
imagine
yeah,
it's so funny. Like, imagine Tom like putting on like a suit and tie and like making these phone calls, and then like they get there and like Travis wasn't in the band yet, so like we didn't have like the tattooed guy, but like then they come and I mean, this guy just got kicked out of high school for drinking, yeah. So like they probably think they're booking like a motivational speaker, and then they come out and just play like Carousel or like, whatever their first couple songs were. It's like, what the heck?
I love it.
That is crazy. So fun fact, I don't know why they were called Blink. We'll have to look that up. But the first album that they released was released with just Blink. They added the Blink 182 because an Irish band that was also called Blink sued them. So they had to add the 182, and they've been pretty much trolling people, saying that the 182 has a special meaning, and people have tried to figure it out for the last 20 years, but they've recently just said that it's just a random number that they made up. So
that sounds like a bunch of kids would do that, though. They would just come up with a random number, and then it would mean nothing.
Yes. Well, it's funny because like even in high school, like I used to I was a good kid, but I did my fair share of pranks. Yeah. So it's just like they're just kids, just like us that just also liked music, and now they're like the biggest stars in the world, which is insane. So yeah, after they decided to, they were just trying their best to book some shows. A couple years later, they released their first album, which was called Cheshire Cat in 1995. So it only took them about 2 to 3 years to release their first album. And this album had songs like Carousel, M&M's, and Wasting Time. When I was listening to this album again, Carousel is such an interesting first album song because it's just an instrumental intro for like the first 2 minutes of the whole album. So like imagine like the first album you put out and the first song is just like, I don't know, there's just no singing. It felt really interesting. It was an interesting choice, So this is the only album that was ever released under the name Blink. After that they went to the 182. But this album ended up being really successful because during this time punk was pretty big, especially in California. This is kind of like around the time of Nirvana, and the punk scene was really appreciated at this time. So I think that they picked a good time to kind of debut. I'm thinking of my favorite band, Weezer, who also released an album around this time, 1994, which is not punk at all, if you're thinking of the Blue Album, and it didn't do as well as
interesting.
So I think maybe Blink-182 is right on target with kind of the sound of the times. So the sound of this album definitely gives off like first album vibes. It's very unpolished, which I think we say that about all of the first albums that we talk about. And a lot of the critics kind of said that it felt like they were trying to make a connection between emo and like skate punk. So I thought that was kind of cool. Tom, I watched an interview, and Tom said that every song on this album was just a different version of another punk song that he knew, and they just tried to make it better. So he said that like no one would be able to tell, but he could tell you like what each song was modeled after another song that he already knew. So
that's
I was like,
really interesting.
I know. I was like, okay. I mean, well, whatever floats your boat. So I personally love wasting time on this album. When my friend Marnie and I, who we interviewed on the Pop Punk episode, we saw Blink-182. I don't know when, but we looked at their set list on like Setlist FM before they played, and Carousel, which is the song on this album, was the only song that we didn't know the words to. So I remember us like listening to it on repeat to try to learn the lyrics.
So imagine hearing that instrumental part over and over.
I was like, I think we got this part down.
Just nod your head.
Yep, just rocking out. So yeah, their first album was actually a pretty big hit, and helped them kind of get their first national gig. And as soon as their first album was released, they started working on their second album, and they got signed to a major label. And they started touring a lot. And during this, like we said, I guess my toilet humor or their jokes, they were known for doing a lot of that while they were touring, which kind of seemed like a double-edged sword when I was researching. They would kind of do like Jackass style stunts on stage and just kind of be really, really crude and really just kind of out there. And this helped them and it hurt them. It helped them because then people knew like, oh, because like think of like the other big bands during this time, like Nirvana, like Weezer,
or maybe
they were
Red Hot
just
Chili Peppers.
Yeah, like they were not as like out there as Blink. So it helped them to gain a reputation, but then it also helped them because a lot of people didn't actually take them seriously and wasn't really focusing on their music and just kind of was more focusing on their antics. So I think it was like one of those things that's like it helped them and it hurt them.
Well, it's funny you say that. I don't want to jump too fast forward into our time travel or adventure here, but people didn't actually take them seriously till their self-titled album.
Interesting. That makes sense if you think about kind of which is crazy because that's 2003. That's 10, right? Or is it 2001? It's one of those. It's like 8 to 10 years later.
2003, I believe.
Yeah. That's insane. So yeah, that's always been a struggle for them. So 2 years later, they went on a bunch of tours and they released their second album, Dude Ranch. Great album. A lot of great songs came from this. Damn It is probably their biggest song that came from this. When I was re-listening to this album, the song Untitled, oh my gosh, if you have not heard that, it just, those songs that's like, it's not well known, but you just knew it. And so when I heard it for the first time again, like in 10 years, and I was like, oh my God, this song exists. And I just like started freaking out because I forgot about it. I love that song. But Damn It is definitely the one that helped them gain kind of their mainstream credibility, which I thought was interesting because this song is about a relationship. And I think a lot of their other songs, like, at this time were not really focused around that more. So it's interesting to kind of think about what hits in the mainstream, like what people, like what people like it's a classic recipe of like, sing about a girl, right? Like that's, every song in the radio is about a girl. So it's interesting that they kind of the one song that got them super famous is kind of following that, that formula. Whereas I think they've tried to not do that up until this time. So I thought that was interesting. And then Scott, their drummer, left the band right during this time. I dug deep into this. Like,
okay, tell me.
Oh my gosh. Because I guess I knew that Travis was like a new drummer to them, but I didn't really understand the timeline. But it's very unclear of why he left. He only kept saying it was just a loss. So we're not sure if someone died or what happened. Something happened, and he eventually began drinking to cope with this mystery tragedy, and eventually became an alcoholic. Tom gave him a question of go to rehab or not. He was very on the fence, and then one day he said, all right, Tom, I'll go to rehab. And then Tom was like, I'm already done with you. So
he basically already fired him and replaced him.
Yeah, he was like, you took too long to decide. So this part blew my mind. I don't know if anyone's gonna know who this band is.
I actually do.
I know you do.
Okay.
Did I show them to you? Probably.
You did. You were the one that showed it to me. Yeah.
So Travis Barker was drumming for the Aquabats, which maybe we can talk about them on our ska episode.
Okay.
They are such like an underrated ska band, but they're also like a joke band. Like, and so he was drumming for them on tour, and it was like, I think they fired Scott like the day before a show or something. And Tom asked Travis to learn a 20-song set list, and he learned it in 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
Travis Barker is a legend.
How does he know how to drum so well?
Like, some people just brains are just wired like that. Like,
he thinks in drum beats only.
I think so. I really think so. So after that, he was like, you have the gig pretty much. Yeah.
Wow.
And he joined at the right time, because this is kind of where they started to get big.
We're going to get into the meat and potatoes now. Meat and potatoes. What does that mean? Mainstream breakthrough and continued success. This ranges from the year 1999 all the way up to 2004. So the early 2000s, late 90s. For most of us, this is where we're going to really know Blink-182 as our age group in the 30s. Mm-hmm. This is where, although some of us have probably heard of it before, if you're cool, I was not as cool. This is where I found out about them. So Enema of the State came out in 1999. This is the release of the group's third album, and it catapulted to stardom and became one of the biggest pop punk acts of the era. So not only did they have one hit, they had 3 singles that were released from the record, which we all know: What's My Age Again, All the Small Things, and Adam's Song. And I know Adam's Song was one of Marnie's favorites for sure.
How do you produce that from one album? Like,
they all became like huge major radio hits. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing All the Small Things. It just, oh my God. So the band had a really strong relationship with MTV. And what do I mean by that? Well, every time you turned on the TV, you saw their iconic videos for all 3 of those. Or maybe, I don't know if Adam's Song had like a video. But I know for What's My Age Again and also The Small Things did, for sure. Mm-hmm. Specifically the one where they're running down the street naked.
God, it's just a classic.
Yeah. Exactly. So I know everyone remembers that. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos in my life, and I'll never forget that one. So something worked. So they became a staple on TRL, if anyone remembers that.
God, dude, yeah. TRL.
They were a staple.
They were.
Despite everything of the band being known as a joke, like you said, manufacturing only pop punk songs, resembling punk, being pigeonholed as a joke, all of that was definitely going around. But again, despite everything, the album sold over 15 million copies worldwide. And they had a huge effect on pop punk music. So they inspired the second wave of a genre. Does that resonate with you?
That's insane, thinking about like just their transition, because their first album was definitely not as poppy, a lot more just punk, and they've kind of, I would say Damn It was pretty pop punk, so then this one is like, you know, they've kind of found their sound. Yeah, that's so cool, because it's funny, I remember when we did the pop punk genre episode, we like asked a bunch of people like, what's the first band that you think of when you think of pop punk? Most of them said Blink-182. Like, they are the staple of this genre. So I love that they kind of like reinvigorated it.
And they did. And why that? Do you remember when Good Charlotte came out and all those other bands? Avril Lavigne. Who else was another one?
Like Simple Plan,
Simple Plan. All these bands came out around this time, I believe, when this album came out. So they definitely inspired other people to come out and be pop punk, in my opinion.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm looking now, like Sum 41 came out in 1997, and they gained popularity around that time. Good Charlotte, same, 1997. So this was like, yeah, they were definitely the pioneers.
They were the pioneers. So Tom and Mark primarily used stories from their friends and situations to kind of craft some songs revolving around breakups. Again, the typical type songs, some parties, maturity, as well as some offbeat subject matter. As some of you may know, UFO conspiracy, that was definitely Tom's idea for sure, which we'll get into later.
Oh yeah, I cannot wait to talk about that. I went on another deep dive in that. I was looking for hours about his company. I cannot wait to tell you guys about that.
So as we all know, the cover artwork for this album features a porn star, and she was famously dressed as a nurse in the nurse uniform, and the title is a pun on the term enemy of the state.
I think she came out recently, like on TikTok or on Instagram or something, and said like, I'm the lady from the...
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, imagine like just all these guys like worshiping you like 20 years ago. Like,
it was an iconic album cover. For sure. So now we fast forward to 2001. So let's see here, 1999 to 2001. So they just came off a really big high of getting these really big hits out. Their fourth album became their first #1 album in the U.S. Not only the U.S., Canada, and Germany. And this spawned the singles that we definitely all know. If you didn't know the other ones, you know The Rock Show, Stay Together for the Kids, and First Date.
I love that each in Enema of the State and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, there's 3 singles. 2 that are a little more like upbeat, and then 1 that's like depressing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tom strived to have that heavier sounding guitar riff. So with time off from his tour, he kind of felt a desire to broaden his musical palette. And so I don't know why this was necessary when I was reading about it, but he said he had chronic back pain, and that resulted in some frustration. So he created Boxcar Racer. Now this is where things get a little dicey. So Boxcar Racer came out in 2002. It was an LP that kind of had like a post-hardcore sound, and he invited Travis to record the drums for this project. And Boxcar Racer rapidly evolved into a side project for the duo only that launched the single I Feel So and There Is. I didn't have time to listen to those, but I'm sure I did in the past, so I believe I've heard. Have you heard them?
Oh yeah, There Is.
Okay.
You'll know. Yeah, we're going to listen to it on our break. You'll know that one.
Okay.
I didn't know that it was just him and Travis.
Yeah. So in addition to adding those to 2 national tours throughout 2002, Tom DeLonge claimed that Hoppus was not intentionally left out of this little duo side project, but Hoppus definitely felt betrayed, and this created a great division within the trio for some time. And there was some unresolved tension at the forefront of the band's later hiatus.
First of all, there's a lot to unpack there. If I have back pain, I'm not going to go and start another band. That is a little bit of a cop-out. It sounds like maybe, he was just saying that because he was probably tired of touring and wanted to kind of... Boxcar Racer, I cannot wait to listen on the break with you, but it's a lot more chill. Definitely that post-hardcore... and maybe he was just done with Hoppus. I don't know. This is definitely a turning point though. Like I know their next album that you're going to talk about is like another huge one, but this seems like a turning point soon.
This is absolutely a turning point for the band. Now I know this wouldn't seem obvious for those when we were younger and we were listening to this album or listening to the songs on the radio. We thought everything was going well, especially when 2 years later they come out with another album. So yeah, you didn't think anything was wrong, but there was tension being added to the trio. And we had no idea what was going to happen next. But things are still okay right now. They regroup. They kind of get their heads together. Boxcar Racer, okay, maybe that's in the past, and maybe they're deciding to forget about that, because in the fifth album, and my favorite album, is the self-titled Blink-182. This used elements such as like the usual pop punk song, and then some emo lifestyle changes. So they all became fathers before this album released, so that was interesting. Oh,
that's interesting, because I was gonna say, I was like, this album is definitely, the sound is different, and the material, the lyrics are definitely about something different. So I'm like, I wonder if just because they're growing up, but I think the fact that they were fathers probably has a lot to do with it. So
exactly.
That's sweet.
So things have changed in the way they write, the way they sing, the way they handle their business. And their worldwide touring schedule was happening. They traveled to Japan, Australia. They even performed for a troop station in the Persian Gulf during the first year of the Iraqi War. Critics genuinely complimented this. So like I said earlier, they were now taking them more seriously and said it was a more mature direction. With this new direction, it led to singles such as Feeling This and I Miss You. Again, if you're not familiar with the band already, you definitely are now, because these songs grew on the charts. I remember Feeling This, that video, you know, the one where he's like standing on this like stadium thing and there's like people on the ground and he's like wearing like this tie. That makes sense, right?
That tracks 100%. Yes.
Okay. And then I Miss You with the iconic lyrics. I mean, I Miss You is still trending today. Like, that song is still
that
iconic.
Song, a couple of the songs, definitely before I Miss You broke barriers in terms of, like, genre. But I Miss You is, like, I think they're one song that, like, it doesn't matter if you listen to rap, country, every single person knows I Miss You, like, in the world, I'm pretty sure. Like,
right?
It's so legendary.
It is. And even though everyone knows this song, there were fans that were split by this new direction, and there were some tensions within the band itself. So this definitely pushed Tom to desire to spend more time with his family, and this was becoming sort of evident. And I don't know if it was evident to the fans or if it was just obvious to his team members. But Katie's going to tell us what happens.
I guess I will, and I think that's so interesting because, like, that's why I love these deep dive episodes, I think, because to us, we don't think anything of all this. And especially back then, like, social media wasn't as big, and you know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't have really known anything, but I'm sure to them there was a lot of turmoil. But I think if you were a fan of them and knowing about the Boxcar Racer thing, like, you might have been like, that's a little weird. Like, that was definitely a red flag.
It's funny you mentioned the social media thing. If Blink-182 was around now and this was happening now, this would be all over.
Oh, like, this would be reported on by, like, YouTubers. Like, this would be, like, huge news. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's interesting. That's kind of the power now that social media has, that, like, bands sometimes and people seem bigger than they are just because now we're reporting on everything. Back then, like, how would we have known about this as much?
Well, this is similar. I don't know if you know, but have you been keeping track of the drama with the Don't Worry Darling cast?
No.
Oh, girl. You need to Google the Don't Worry Darling cast with Florence Pugh, Olivia Wilde, Harry Styles, and Chris Pine. That whole debacle.
Okay, I really want to see that movie, first of all. I've seen something about it, but I haven't dug deep into it. But I've seen it, like, all over. So
this is a prime example of how the drama that's within the actors here is blasted over the internet. So I can only imagine the drama within Blink-182 would have been the same.
Aren't Harry Styles and Olivia Wilde dating?
They're together in a way that's things are happening.
But weren't they dating before this movie? Oh, what?
In a way.
Okay, well, you got me intrigued. Podcast over. I need to go and look this up. But it is very interesting thinking about, how this would have affected a band like Blink or, any other band that was available and around really before this. Now it's like everything is, broadcasted to the world, whether you want it to be or not. So it's super crazy. But as you said, this did cause a lot of tension. And I guess, okay, so Blink-182 self-titled came out in 2003. In 2005, the trio disbanded. No, I know. We need to get some sound bites in there. We could put no. Tom quit. I remember, I think 2005 was our first year of ninth grade. I do remember this, and I remember that I was like, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Especially because the Blink-182 album just came out, and I was absolutely, again, obsessed. That was my inner punk that came out, and I was so devastated. I was like, what do I do now? I know.
Like, you're like, I'm just now, like, discovering them, and now they're gone. Yeah. So this was obviously huge news, social media or not. So after this, Travis and Mark kind of formed their own band. This is kind of, I think we mentioned this a little bit in the pop punk episode, but I'm glad that we're kind of able to break it down a little bit more.
Wait. Isn't it ironic that Travis forms a band with Tom and then he goes and forms a band
with
Mark?
Well, Tom was obviously the issue, I think. I know Mark's like, finally, my friend's back. So Travis and Mark formed Plus 44, and Tom formed a new band with random people called Angels and Airwaves. I knew of both of these bands. It's interesting the direction that they both took because they both had very different sounds. Plus 44 was a lot more consistent with Blink at the time, a lot more pop punk. And they eventually went a lot heavier than Blink ever was. And Angels and Airwaves kind of followed the more, I think you called it American rock feel. And eventually was a little bit lighter than Blink-182 was.
Almost indie like.
Yeah, kind of indie. There was a couple Angels and Airwaves songs that I liked. I never really got super into them. I did see them live, I think with Marnie, but it's really interesting. I checked them out. Angels and Airwaves released an album recently in 2021.
Was Tom on it?
Tom was on it. Yep. I don't know if I recommend. I heard some techno, I heard some electronic, I heard some Rise Against, I heard a lot of different sounds. There was very little cohesion, but I think it's cool that he's still recording. I don't know if now I should mention it. I'll save it, but
okay.
So Plus 44, on the other hand, kind of knew right what they were about. They only released one album. They had a good one and done. They had a good run, and then they kind of went their ways. Now, this is another thing that I've just spent so much time researching this. I knew about Travis Barker's plane accident, but I didn't really understand how big of a deal it was until I was researching for this podcast. So he was, for those of you that don't know, was on a plane crash in 2008. This is the part I didn't know. He was one of 2 survivors on the plane. Everyone else died. Like, that is insane. Because I was like, I knew he didn't fly and I knew he had a plane accident, but I didn't really understand the severity of it. And I guess in 2008, I was like in 11th grade. So I heard about it. I wasn't super, as involved with things, I guess, as I am now. But, for those of you that don't know, the listeners are probably like, wow, you're like really late, but it's okay. Better late than never.
Yeah.
The plane's tires blew out and 3 of his closest friends died in the plane. And Barker was left with burns on 65% of his body. Which is interesting to think about his tattoos. I'd love to see some before and afters, but he had 27 operations after the accident. He said he smelled and burped up jet fuel for 3 months.
Ew.
I know. But imagine being on a plane and like 20 to 30 people die and you're one of 2 survivors. Like, you probably have like survivor's guilt.
Yeah, imagine seeing your. Okay, did he actually see his friends like
I don't know.
dead or?
I'm assuming, imagine a plane crash. Like, we've seen movies of it. Like, you're all kind of there. Like, or
Unless they
they
were
got
like
burned.
exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he was covered in jet fuel, I'm sure that they were also covered in jet fuel. So it's really crazy. So needless to say, Plus 44 released their album. A couple years later, they were kind of just doing their own thing, being dads. And then he gets on this plane in this plane crash. And this just, obviously rocked everything. Fun fact, he has gone on a plane since then. His new woman, Kourtney Kardashian, obviously flies her own private jet. So he has gotten on a plane since then, which was, I remember seeing on Instagram and I was like, oh, good for him. But now I'm like, oh my God, like that's actually amazing that he has been able to face his fears. And I've been flying a lot recently. My mom just is on a plane right now to Paris.
Yeah.
And I don't love flying as much as I used to. I think, and especially after hearing that, I'm like, I'm sure things are different now, but it's just scary to think that like that could, you just don't know what's going to happen, So
I mean, anything can happen. Flying, driving, just any way of travel. There's always a risk.
this is a little morbid, but my mom rewrote her will. And as I was dropping her off at the airport, she was like, oh, I updated my will. It's on my desk. I was like, okay. So I go and read it. And it's like, it's smart. She's getting older. Like, you don't know what's going to happen when you fly across the country. So it's scary.
Is this because of what's happening in her personal life?
Probably. And just, I think, she's leaving the country for a couple weeks. So she just wants to make sure, but hey, it's just scary. But good for him for getting back on the plane. But obviously, after the band, after losing Blink and then now this, like, they're all just in disarray. But luckily, they do get back together. They meet again.
They do.
Yeah, tell us about
again.
that.
Okay, so a few years later, in 2009, we have all just graduated high school at this time. They met and appeared on stage together as presenters in the Grammy Awards in February and announced a reunion. They continued to tour together in a reunion till the early 2010s, and then they realized there was still some remaining friction between the members. As you can imagine, things never go away. The same issues were probably never resolved, and I don't think it worked out too well for them, because during the recording of Neighborhoods in 2011, this was the band's sixth album. It was stalled because of the tours and the manager and all of their personal projects. Tom ended up recording at his home studio in San Diego, while Hoppus and Barker recorded in LA. And so there was like a large extension of their strained communication. And I know, Katie, you mentioned in the past other bands have done this, and usually that's for not a good reason.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and that really makes me sad to kind of think about, like, they obviously wanted that feeling back that they had when Blink-182 was at its peak, and they sometimes it's better just to kind of let things go. But I think we all kind of experience that, whether it's with exes or friends. You want that feeling back that you used to have, and it just sounds like they weren't able to make it work. But Tom really just had a lot of stuff going on, I think, and it's evident that he wasn't as into it as the other two maybe were.
He just wasn't focused. Like, he just wasn't there. Like, he lost, the attention for Blink-182. This used to be his baby project. Like, this was his band, and it just seems like he no longer had passion. And that's when Tom had his final performance at the Wine Amplified Festival in Las Vegas, and that was in October of 2014. And then the reunion of the band has been kind of like known as a dysfunctional kind of thing that happened, both by Barker and Tom both said that. So they both believe that it was just not a good fit anymore, and things changed, and will forever be changed for the band.
Well, and it's interesting when it's kind of like people that get together like in high school, or just like, it's hard to stay with someone and change and grow along with them. These kids met when they were, in high school. It's really hard to all be on the same page, for that long. And so I think they had a really good run, and it's, I'm glad that they all just kind of realized, like, maybe this just isn't going to work for us anymore.
So, Katie, bring us home. What's happening from then to now?
Yes. So, obviously things are different now. They, despite knowing, that the term Blink-182 was between Mark, Travis, and Tom, Travis and Mark wanted to keep playing music together. They could have very easily just had another band like Plus 44, but they decided to keep the name. So good for them. I'm sure that I know that there was a big legal battle with that, with Tom, but eventually Tom gave up and they hired a new singer and guitarist, to replace Tom. And I remember it took me a while to realize what was happening, because when they released some stuff recently in 2016, I was like, that's not Tom. And I was like, oh, and I remember kind of being like, good for them for getting a new singer, because I think a lot of Blink-182 is categorized by Tom's voice, his inflection, and the way that he says things. It's very specific. So I remember being like, that's not Tom.
I mean, that's just like the same thing with Anthony Green. You can't get another Anthony Green. He has such a unique voice. So if you replace his voice, you're going to notice.
Well, they did it, and we noticed. So the new singer and guitarist is Matt Skiba. He is the lead singer of the band Alkaline Trio, which is another amazing band. And apparently he had wanted to work with the guys of Blink for a while. He filled in for a couple shows, I guess, after Tom left his last show at the Wine Festival. I guess he still had a couple of shows left on the books, which is kind of crappy. I guess it must have been really bad. I don't know if he got kicked out or if he just left, but Matt Skiba kind of filled in for the guys, and so it was just kind of easy. He was just kind of like, hey, I'm the new singer.
Hey
guys. So they released California in 2016. I honestly love this album. I know that you do too.
Oh, I love it so much.
Unpopular opinion maybe, but this album is great. It's not really what we typically think of when we think of Blink, but there's still a lot of the classic Blink sounds and feels to this album. They have some songs that are super fast paced, and then some that are a lot more just classic sing-along melodies. I've just spent a lot of time thinking about Blink lately. I was reading an interview with Mark Hoppus when they were writing this album, and he said that he was able to kind of express himself and be a lot more himself on this album because he had a lot more creative freedom than he has had in the past, and I'm pretty sure that's because Tom wasn't there. So that's really cool. And so it's really cool that you and I really like this album, thinking about how it was kind of more of Mark's baby, whereas the other ones were more of Tom's baby. Something really cool too is that both Mark's son and Travis's daughter are playing music on this album.
Yeah, I know.
That's super cool. So after California in 2016, they released another album called 9 in 2019. This is definitely a different vibe than what they had originally done. There's a lot of different stuff going on. There's still the pop punk feel, but there's a lot of hip hop inspired beats. I don't really vibe with this album that much. I
vibe 0%.
Yeah, I honestly didn't even know it was an album, and I knew about it, but I haven't really ever listened to it until recently. So I think that California was, the three new, with Matt all got together and did a good album, and then it's weird, there's 3-year gap, so I'm like, what were y'all doing in the meantime? I know for a fact that Travis now has his own recording studio, his own record label, so it kind of feels like they didn't want to let go of the Blink-182 dream, but it's slowly kind of dismantling at this point,
Yeah.
And so the band was supposed to put out a new album or a new EP in 2021. I remember hearing about this. And they were also going to release a song with Juice WRLD, who is a rapper. But this never happened. And so they haven't really done anything since 2019. Apparently last year Mark got diagnosed with cancer. He has since recovered, but Mark and Travis got reunited with Tom after this, and I guess they've hashed everything out. A couple of interesting facts. There's not really any proof that Matt Skiba is still in the band. They're being kind of weird about this. I also did a lot of research on this. They're not really saying that he is or isn't, but people are asking and they're being really vague about it. So they haven't done anything in a couple years, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but it'd be nice to know like what,
unless they're just saying the band's done in general and like no one's in the band.
Yeah. But no, I want them to say it,
Yeah.
And back to what I was going to say initially, kind of thinking about what they're doing now. I know that Travis has his own recording studio. We kind of alluded to this earlier. Tom DeLonge, one of his many things that he's been doing that has taken him away from his music is he has a company that investigates UFOs called To the Stars, Academy of Arts and Science. I spent hours, at least 4 hours, researching this man's company. It is the most legit thing in the world. He gets millions of dollars of grant funding. He has like an entire research team. Like this isn't just some like this is an insane company. Like I just want everyone to know that he is kicking butt.
Should we work for this company? Can we be our CEO?
It's really insane. They now release graphic novels and books and like movies based on UFOs. And he's actually released a self-titled album of just music called To the Stars. So he's calling it a multimedia company, but they do a lot of research, a lot of field work. I highly recommend Jenna just checking out their website and doing some research on their Wikipedia. It's just really interesting.
I was just thinking of 720 from Parks and Rec.
Oh, my Entertainment 720.
It's Entertainment 720.
Yeah, or like Michael Scott Paper Company. No, this is a legit company. So good for them for all kind of doing what makes them happy now. But, this band has obviously had a really good run. And it, kind of sucks the way it ended. But we have a lot.
I think for me,
I was going to say we have a lot of great songs to, there's no bad memories in my head about Blink-182. Like,
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. For me, the Blink-182, it will always be legendary to me. Their songs that they produced and put out has been impactful on my life, and I know your life, and, they'll always be remembered for, those hit songs that we just grew up to love. And whether they have a future or not, that I guess we'll just take it for what it is.
They're also like pretty old now. Let me see. Travis Barker is okay, he's almost 50. So
they're not gonna have that punk feel anymore. I mean, if they're in their 50s, they're not gonna be like running around talking about like immaturity and like.
That's a really interesting like. Okay, when I just Googled Travis Barker, where Google says people also ask.
Yeah.
The first thing that pops up is, what is so special about Travis Barker? If you have to ask, something's wrong with you guys. But
he's very special. He's talented, and everyone should be jealous.
Yes, you should be very jealous. And his tattoos are insane. But it's an interesting kind of world and time that I'm in right now in my 30s, because the people that I used to listen to are now, and that I looked up to when I was young, are now older. So it's just, you know what I mean? Like, I know like my parents have gone through that when like, musicians that they've listened to have now passed away. And I feel like it's going to start happening to us soon. And that's just something really weird to think about. You know what I mean? And, that could be like a whole thing, but
a whole other thing.
Yeah. But let's take a quick break. And when we get back, we are going to, share our favorite albums, favorite songs, and rank the albums, and then do our on repeat.
All right.
Alrighty.
See you after the break.
Bye-bye.
All right, we are back from our break, and I learned a lot. Don't know about you, Jen.
I definitely did.
Definitely did. So really quickly, we're just going to kind of recap and share our favorite albums and favorite songs. This was very hard for us to do, as it usually is. And then we're just going to rank our albums. I guess we could rank the albums after we give our favorites. Yeah. And then we'll do our songs and then our on repeat, and then that is it.
That's it.
So I was trying to pick one favorite album. Obviously, I couldn't.
No rules.
No rules. I guess I'll just share my albums in order.
Okay.
Yeah. So all 8. So my first favorite album is Take Off Your Pants and Jacket.
Okay.
My second is the self-titled Blink-182. Third is Enema of the State. Fourth is Dude Ranch. Fifth is Neighborhoods, 2011, which is pretty controversial.
Wow.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Sixth is Cheshire Cat, which is their first one. Seventh is California, which is their 2016, even though I do love it. And then last is their last album. I didn't even know it existed. So it's called 9.
For some reason, I don't understand why.
I know.
Okay.
So yeah, top 3 would be Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, Blink-182, and Enema of the State.
Really great. Solid choices.
Yep.
We have a similar ranking. There is some distinct differences in where we go on different paths, but I'll go ahead and share mine. Now, if it wasn't known before in episode 3 and it wasn't known till now, I'm going to tell you Blink-182, the 2003 album, is my number 1.
Yep.
There's no wavering on that. It is my absolute favorite. Die-hard fan. Number 2, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. So here we swapped our number 1 and 2 here. But where a little switcheroo. Where we stayed the same was Enema of the State for my number 3. We also stayed the same on Dude Ranch for my number 4. And then I go on a different path. California was my 5th favorite album, whereas it was your 7th favorite. And
wow.
I pulled California up further on the list. I truly loved that album, and I thought it brought me back to the Blink-182 vibe from 2003. Then on number 6 is Cheshire Cat. Not because I don't think it was a good album. I honestly barely know any songs on that album. And then Neighborhoods, same thing. I don't even think I've heard more than one song on that album.
Really?
And even after doing research on this entire band, there's just so many albums and songs I can't possibly listen to them all. So yeah, I kind of fell short on that one. And then 9, honestly, I just didn't even bother. It was not good for me. I'm sorry, not good.
Well, that's fair. At least you know your capacity for things. So your top 3 was Blink-182, Take Off Your Pants, and then Enema of the State. Okay.
Correct.
Cool. All right. Obviously, we can't just pick one favorite song. So we just made a list. If I don't know why, but when I tell people my favorite song, it's Shut Up. And it's not even a big song. It hasn't even been, it's on Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. That's my favorite song from Blink-182. Shut Up is my favorite. I'm just going to kind of give you a couple more. Untitled, Going Away to College, Feeling This. I love that song.
That's a good one.
Violence, Down, Wasting Time, and then She's Out of Her Mind. Those are some that come to mind for me.
Apple Shampoo,
love it. Yep.
I was like, I know you like that one.
Yep.
So for me, I wanted to try to stay away from some of the big hits, but it was hard. So I'm going to go ahead and roll them off. So I liked Roller Coaster. Roller coaster. Sorry.
Rolling.
Rolling coaster. The coasters were rolling. Okay. Let's start over. Roller Coaster, Stay Together for the Kids, Aliens Exist. I just love how fun that song is.
Love it.
Bored to Death, No Future. Those 2 songs came off the California album for anyone out there who wants to give that one a try. Those 2 songs are really great. Violence, again, yeah, that's a really good one, Katie. Stockholm Syndrome. So So Michael asked me the other day, we were listening to Blink, and we were putting some songs from Blink, and he goes, put a song on. So I picked Stockholm Syndrome. He's like, okay, the deep cuts.
I guess kind of, yeah.
It's kind of a deep cut on the album. And then Always, Easy Target, and if I'm being completely honest, I want the whole album on the list, but I had to take it easy.
I know. What did he share? What some of his favorite songs were?
I didn't ask him.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't care. So it'll be interesting to hear that.
Would be.
So yeah, I would love when we post this to hear some people's favorite songs. See if any of them are match. I have a couple post ideas that maybe we can do when we post this one.
Okay.
We'll talk later. Okay. So, we didn't put any songs in our playlist from Blink-182.
All right. So, since we both really like Violence, that's going in there.
Okay.
And maybe we'll pick another couple out throughout the Blink-182 album from our top 3. We'll pick a few from our top 3.
Okay. Sounds good. Because
Awesome.
they definitely deserve to be in there.
They will.
Okay, so going to our on repeat, mine is a cover song. So as I shared earlier in this podcast, I just went to see Streetlight Manifesto. So what I do when I go to see bands is I pretty much listen to them for the whole week before. So that's what I've been doing with Streetlight. So Streetlight has a cover of a song by the Postal Service, which if you don't know who that is, it's Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie's side project. The song is Such Great Heights. I really like this song because the Postal Service is a very techno, kind of chill, really emotional song. And so for Streetlight Manifesto, which is a ska band with a very fast pace to cover it, I think is a nice contrast. And I just really like their take on it. Jenna, did you listen to it?
I listened to it, and I thought it was great, and so much so I added it to my Love a Good Cover Song playlist. For anyone out there wanting a good cover song playlist, you can follow me on Spotify, Love a Good Colors playlist.
That is a great playlist that you have. You do love a good cover song.
I love a good cover song, and it was a good one.
But if you want to hear that song, we'll put it in our on repeats, obviously, and I highly recommend it. What was your song?
So I had to go back to a faithful band, Mother and their song Hayloft. This song popped up on my Discover Weekly, even though I've already listened to the album before. There was something about this song hitting differently. Like, you can hear an album and then you don't recognize a song. Maybe it just kind of skips by while you're working on something. But then it was singled out on a different playlist, and I was like, oh, what is this?
You just rediscovered it?
Rediscovered it. What'd you think?
I love it. I hadn't heard it before, but it made me very excited for us to see them in October.
We have to buy our tickets. I can't imagine they're going to go, sold out, but we should buy them shortly.
Get paid tomorrow, so maybe I'll look. There's a bunch of them these concerts that I don't have tickets for yet, so I might need to do an inventory. But
I have all the tickets for this month, but I don't think I have them all for next month. Besides, I think Silver Sun Pickups is in November. I have that one for some reason already, but
I have that one too. But I really like this song. I really like this band a lot. I don't like a lot of new I like my old faithful bands, and so I'm really glad that you showed me a band that I really like that isn't one that I've heard of before, and this song really made me excited to see them next month.
Yay! You'll know more than one song to sing to now. I'm stoked to see them. I'm going to scream.
We're going to be doing a lot of screaming this month. So if our voice sounds a little different this month, you'll know why.
Yeah, we have the Killers coming up very shortly with Amelia. And then again, in a few days, we're going to go see My Chemical Romance with Amelia. And then for a third time, Amelia is taking us to go see Lizzo with a couple other friends as well. So we have a pretty packed month of shows.
That's all in like a week and a half. So we're gonna have a lot to do, but it's worth it.
Very worth it. Thankfully, I'll be done with school by the end of the 16th. So September 16th, I will be officially done with this course, and I get a very well-deserved 3-week break.
Awesome. That's great, dude. That's perfect timing.
Yeah.
Literally because we're leaving for my chem on the 17th.
Yeah.
So good timing. All right. So thank you all so much for listening to our Blink-182 deep dive. We hope that you liked it as much as we did. If you have any friends that love Blink-182, just send them this podcast. And I'm sure that they'll learn something because I know that Jenna and I did. And our next episode is going to go back to our classic genre tier system, and we're going to be diving into ska, which I know is a genre that Jenna doesn't have a lot of fans that you.
A few,
but I'm excited.
Just a couple. I'm kind of excited too because there is a few songs I like, and so I'd like to learn more.
For sure. So thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.